It is vlog 321, and before we get into the actual session, as I head over to Peppermill, I want to talk about tracking poker sessions. Now, I have done this on a variety of different apps over the years. I started out doing it on just spreadsheets many years ago, but I have found an app that I must say is definitely my favorite of any app I've ever used to track poker sessions on, and it's called the Left Pocket app. Now, the reason it's my favorite app that I've ever used is because it really focuses on helping your mental game, which, in all honesty, when you're having a below average year, as I will admit I am having, that helps you a lot. It's also an app that, of course, allows you to track your hourly rate, your average profit, your win ratio, your profit per 100 hands, and your ROI. It's also state-of-the-art, meaning it has a new add notes feature, which incorporates artificial intelligence to automatically transform your long, verbose hand histories as you read them into a very concise readout for you to catalog the most important hands that you've played. Now, if you want to see how this works, you can get a month free to give it a shot and see what you think. All you got to do is use promo code DEACH in the settings screen, and you get 1 month free of the Left Pocket app. Let's head over to Peppermill and play some poker.
Let's go.
I'd come into the session after a day that looked like I was headed for greatness. I would raise pocket nines in the hijack to 40 and get 2 callers, including the big blind, who's a guy that's capable of giving tons of action in this game. And with 125 in, we get a flop of Jack 9-3 with 2 hearts, giving me middle set. It gets checked to me, and I play this thing fast. I bet right out with it for 100. Folds back to the big blind, who check raises to 400 here. Now, I have a hockey puck and about a stack of red chips behind. And as you can imagine, they are all going in. And he absolutely snap calls, creating about a $2,300 pot. And he shows Jack 9 for top 2 pair and an absolute cooler for him. I guess he could have potentially mucked Jack 9 off pre-flop, but that's neither here nor there. So all I have to do is avoid a jack, and I will win this pot. The turn is the 10 of clubs, and the river peels off the jack of spades. Thankfully, I had asked him if he wanted to run it twice, and he said yes. Part of me was surprised the last jack on the deck didn't peel off there, so we end up chopping in what was supposed to have been a dream scenario for me, something I haven't said much lately. I would then flop a flush with 6-7 of spades, and my opponent would river a full house, which would be the deciding factor in me losing about $1,000 on the day that felt like it was supposed to be a win for me. But on this day, the game looked good, and I felt like I had the potential to win all that back and then some. It would be the second 5-10 game of the day. Mr. W was in this game, shockingly opening a ton of hands. And unfortunately for me, when I chose to 3-bet him with ace-5 of hearts, I would get 4 bets and have to fold, and he would show me pocket kings. I would then open queens under the gun 6-handed to 35. John, the concert merge king, would call on the button. Mr. W calls in the big blind. So with 110 in, the flop was 8-7-5 with 2 clubs. Mr. W leads out for 50. I waste no time raising him, and I raise him big. I make it 250. I am happy to get it all in here for his last 500. But then the hand takes kind of a bizarre turn. The button cold calls the 250. And an even bigger surprise, the big blind folds the hand. So I am heads up to a turn with 660 in the middle, and that card rolls off the deuce of spades. While it is possible that I am going to be stepping into a bear trap here, I think it's more likely that he has a big draw, probably the nut flush draw, and has yet to get there. And I'm going to charge him the max if he wants to try and do so. He has 700 left, and that is what I make the bet. And he does think about this for a long time. Ultimately, not showing the nut flush draw, he shows 6-7, 1 club, 1 spade, and ultimately does make the good fold, and I wasn't going to complain about that. Happy to take that pot down at this point and not have to fade those outs. We would then get another big hand with John. He would play it against Crazy Joe Namath, all in pre-flop, queens, against Joe's kings. Mr. W would limp early position 8-handed. I have ace 6 of hearts, and make the incredibly sophisticated high-level poker play of overlimping. Middle position also calls, and the button then raises to 50. Now when Mr. W calls that raise under the gun, I'm going to go ahead and see this flop as well. So with 210 in, we're 4 ways to ace 6-8 with 2 spades. Now I really, with 2 pair here, do not want this to get checked through. So I just donk lead here, making it 75. Button folds, which I didn't expect, but under the gun calls, which I did. So with 360 in, the turn is the jack of clubs. He checks. This time I bet 150, and unfortunately that's all the value I would get. I would then see an article about how tourism in Vegas is down 11% from a year ago. And I can only hope that that trend does something about the absurdity that is resort fees and places charging you to park, including the places that aren't within walking distance of T-Mobile Arena. That's the one that really gets me, but I doubt it's going to have any impact. Next hand, I look down at Queen Deuce of Clubs in the small blind and decide to call $5 more in a multi-way limped pot. I don't even roll video pre-flop, assuming the hand wouldn't amount to anything, but with 50 in, the flop is ace 6-6 with 2 clubs. I check, checks around to the button, a guy that I don't know well, and he bets 40. I have no plans to call another big bet if I miss the turn, but fortunately, with 130 in, I wouldn't need to worry about that, as the turn would bring in my flush. I lead out here for 80, and he doesn't take too long and makes the call. So with 290 in, the river is an offsuit 7. I bet 125 here, thinking that he would get a little bit nervous with a lot of his aces. But he goes all in for a total of $30 more. Kind of surprised he elected to put that 30 in as well. So it is a $600 pot, and I would win against his ace 7. We'd get a double board bomb pot, and I would break my own rule of no red chips in a bomb pot as a way to try to reverse jinx myself. I would look down at pocket aces, so that's a good start. And with 175 in, we get 9-5 deuce on the bottom and queen 10-6 up top with 2 clubs on each board. MP1 bets out for 120. Mr. W, MP2, calls, and it's on me with the aces. I raise it to 500, and it folds all the way around to MP1, and he declares that he is all in. Now, he only has about 100 more than I bet here. Mr. W, on his left, has about 1,000 total, maybe just a little less. And he also declares that he's all in. Obviously, I'm not folding the aces, so I put the rest of the money in. We have a main pot of about $2,000 here, and we'd have a side pot of about $800 between me and Mr. W, who would end up having, as you can barely see in my video, 8-4 of clubs for the draw on both, and MP1 would have king-queen of clubs for top pair on one, and the flush draw on both. Now, there are not too many clubs left in this deck, so that is the good news, as my opponents have each other's outs. The flush would not come in for either player, but the player 2 to my right in the main pot would river 2 pair on the top board. So I would chop the main pot with him, but scoop the side pot with Mr. W, and it would be a profitable bomb pot for me. We then get a guy who was obviously a pro sitting down in the game. Look at how much he bought in for. He's a young guy, he's here in the middle of the week, in the middle of business hours, buying in for $5,000. I don't know anything about him, but I think it's pretty safe to say that he plays poker professionally. Also, I'd later find out that his name is Ned.
My name is Ned.
I don't know if he knows who I am, But it's one of those situations where you just have to treat him like an unknown and assume he's going to do the same for me. He opens this hand under the gun to 30. John, the concert merch king, calls in the +1 position. By the way, John had told me that he was leaving the day before and someone tried to egg him on to stay in the game. So he rebought for 600 and he ran that all the way up to 6,000. I want to state for the record that I have never tried to talk a player out of leaving to stay in the game. But I love that when these guys did it, John absolutely crushed them. That is fantastic. Anyway, I guess that is something you could factor into this next hand, knowing that he had been kind of on a heater the day before. But I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to consider that factor in what happens here. Two other guys come in as well, and I have pocket 4s in the cutoff and make the call. So with 165 in, the flop is Jack 3-4 with 2 spades, giving me middle set. The original raiser, the pro under the gun, checks. John, in the +1 position, bets out for 75. And it folds to me. I raise this immediately, making it 175. And it's back to the initial raiser. He grabs 5 black chips and tosses them into the pot for the check raise 3-bet to 500. As I am thinking about what the hell I'm going to do here, John grabs his entire stack, which ended up being $1,210, and slides that into the pot for the extremely rare post-flop 4-bet all-in. So it's now back on me. If you were going to go by the policy that the legendary J.K. Simmons suggested in one of my all-time favorite comedies, Palm Springs, you should always trust that first instinct.
Should always go with that first instinct, shitbird.
And my first instinct was that I was up against it here. I just think I'm beat. I don't necessarily know by which of these two guys. I just think I'm beat by one of them. Now, I have absolutely no problem doubling up John for 1,200 here, obviously. But against the other player, I'm playing 3,000 effective. So while I might not have a problem doubling up John, I do have a problem doubling up this pro from out of town who was just sat down on the first hand I've ever played against him. That I do have a problem with. And the longer I play poker, the more rare it is that I see random professionals show up in really big pots without the nuts, especially early on in sessions where they don't know anyone. It's also pretty clear to me that if I happen to not be up against pocket jacks, then I'm going to have to dodge a boatload of outs to win this pot. So while we know both of them don't have me beat right now, I feel one of them does, and the other's got a lot of outs too. So I elect to take the road less traveled and fold this hand right now. The pro ends up snap calling, creating a $2,760 pot. John ends up having ace-8 of spades for the nut flush draw, kind of as I suspected. And sure enough, random out-of-town pro rolls over pocket jacks. And the board actually would pair 3s on the turn. So I am really glad that I got out of there on the flop, because it would have been obviously a much tougher fold on the turn. And I would, by the razor's edge, find a way to prevent myself from losing $3,000 to the last guy in the room I would have wanted to lose it to, in a hand that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. It has kind of felt in 2025 that the poker gods are a bunch of dudes that look like Emperor Palpatine, looking down on me, firing force lightning out of their fingertips at me whenever they get the chance, and usually they find a way to hit me, but in this case, I managed to channel my inner Mace Windu, pull out my purple lightsaber, and deflect that lightning right back at him. And perhaps it's fitting, because this guy's played by Samuel L. Jackson, that I could look them in the eye and say, "Not this time, motherfuckers!" Oh, what a session this turned out to be. Not the longest, that's for sure, as I am out of time. I gotta go pick up my son. But I just gotta believe that that is probably the single best play I've ever made in a poker game. There was the fold that I had a couple of years ago where I had, I believe, 8s full. It ended up being full house over full house over full house. I managed to fold that one. Some people had talked about at the time how that was the best play that I've made. I think this one might surpass it because that was agonizing. But it is a great feeling to know that I was this close to losing $3,000 in a hand, and I got all 3,000 right here. An unbelievable feeling, one that I have not had too many times this year. Still out of here with a $1,520 win, as you can see on the left pocket app. Wow! What a day. If I end up, and I may not, but I still believe I will, if I end up booking a winning year for 2025, that hand is going to be the reason why. By the way, I will point out that I did get a chance to dabble in some PLO this week. They had a 1-2 PLO game with the average stack not very deep, probably only about 400 or 500. But it was still fun to get a chance to play. I am not a complete PLO noob. I was actually a guy who, back before Black Friday in 2011, on Full Tilt, I would grind a lot of PLO online, back when playing online was much more of a thing than it is now. But it felt good to get into a PLO game, and it was actually not a bad game. You had like a couple guys that were kind of just like the type that are going to play every hand. And then you had just basically a lot of older men and women who were just going to wait for the absolute nuts before putting any money in. So it was kind of a fun dynamic in that regard, because you knew what you were going to get. Don't know how much more PLO I will play, but if I do, I'll let you know how it goes. I did play some more No Limit this week as well. Would have had what I would have considered a pretty good week had it not been for one of the last hands I played on the week, but I was just kind of grinding it out in the game that was pretty good, not great. Finally picked up pocket aces and got all in a $1,000 pot after one player put a couple $100 in and then folded when I jammed. The other player didn't. I got all in, aces against nines, 1,000 in. Didn't think to ask to run it twice, and when that happens, the result is usually the same, 9, right on the flop, and I lose. So it may be an extremely memorable week, getting away from those pocket fours, but the run bad continues in 2025. Hit those like and subscribe buttons if you're new to this channel, and check out the Left Pocket app, promo code DEACH for 1 month free. We'll see you back here next time.